Aristotle's views on slavery. Who are slaves? Aristotle believed and justified the institution of slavery. He held that slaves were the property of the master and that slavery is natural and beneficial to both masters as well as the slaves. Just like a musician cannot live without musical instrument, so a family cannot live without a slave. There are two types of slaves. First, slaves by law. They are non-taxpayers, foreigners involved in illegal activities and prisoners of war. They were also known as conventional slaves. Second, natural slaves. They are people who lack reason, wisdom, or virtue. Aristotle justified slavery related to natural slaves. Aristotle's message of nature created two types of individuals. First, mentally strong. Some people are mentally strong who possess reason as well as courage. As a result, they can differentiate between good and bad and also have the courage to make decisions. Such people are masters. Second, physically strong. Some people are physically strong but lack reason and courage. Such people need the guidance of master who can show them the path and make decisions for them. Such people are slaves. Utility of slaves. Aristotle put forward the reasons for the need of slaves in Greek city-states. A. Useful to economy. The slaves worked for longer duration, thus contributing to the growth of the economy. B. Useful for state. The slaves maintained the balance of power in the city-state and prevented the breakup of the Greek social system. C. Useful for masters. If slaves worked, they provided leisure time for their masters to participate in the affairs of the state, thus contributing to the development of the state, enhancement of their moral and intellectual virtues, and fulfilling their duty as citizens. B. Useful for slaves. Slaves lacked reasoning powers and courage to take decisions, so they needed a master. Slaves being with a master enabled them to develop their virtues and elevate himself. Thus, Aristotle believed that slavery was complementary to the slaves as well as to the masters. It sustained the Greek social and economic system and prevented social disorder and chaos. Restriction on slavery. Aristotle approved slavery only under certain conditions. A. Freedom for slaves. Aristotle stood for slaves' freedom if their conduct was good and if they developed capacity for reasoning and virtue. He believed that the institution of slavery was not permanent. It would go with advancement in technology. B. No misuse of power. slavery was essential for the all-round development, but the master had no right to misuse his power because slaves were only assistants and not subordinates. C. Legal punishment. The masters must treat their slaves properly, and those who are cruel masters have to face legal punishments. D. Mentally deficient. Aristotle held that only those who were mentally deficient and virtuously not superior should be enslaved. E. No enslavement of prisoners of war. Aristotle was against enslavement of prisoners of war because they may not be intellectually inferior, but circumstances may have led to loss in war. He thus disapproved the idea of slavery by force.